In 2019, Keir Starmer said shutting down Parliament to avoid scrutiny offended people across the country and revealed the character of the man doing it. Fast forward to April 2026, and guess what Keir Starmer just did?
So today we're going to talk about a dusty old constitutional tool that's suddenly become a very sharp, very convenient political weapon. This is the prorogation playbook. I mean, just imagine it for a second. You know you're about to face your biggest critic right when you're at your weakest, and you have the power to just silence them. Well, that's pretty much what prorogation lets a Prime Minister do to the entire UK Parliament. Alright, so if you want to understand how this political game is played, you got to know the rules. So let's break down what this constitutional pause button actually is. Okay, so prorogation is the formal end of a session of Parliament. Think of it like the end of a school year. But this is not just a holiday, not by a long shot. It's a hard stop. The doors are shut, the lights are off, and pretty much all work just grinds to a halt until the government decides it's time to start a new session. Usually with a big speech from the King. Now, it's super easy to get this mixed up with other parliamentary terms, so let's clear it up. A recess? That's just a normal holiday break. Parliament can actually be called back if there's an emergency. And dissolution, that's the big one. That ends Parliament completely and triggers a general election. Prorogation sits in this really weird, unique middle ground, a formal, legally binding shutdown. And the consequences of hitting that pause button are huge. I mean, almost everything that makes Parliament, well, Parliament just stops. Bills that aren't finished yet, they're often just dead in the water. Debates? Halted. Questions for the Prime Minister cancelled. Scrutiny of the government completely stops. The whole system for holding them to account just goes dark. Okay, so that's the theory. Now let's jump to today and see how this is all playing out. Prime Minister Keir Starmer just used this very tool and it's kicked off a huge debate. Is this just routine procedure or is it a political shield? So the official line, the story they're sticking to, is actually pretty boring. The government says, hey, this session has been going on for 22 months. That's really long. It's time to wrap it up so we can get ready for a new King's speech. And on the surface, you know, that sounds like normal constitutional housekeeping. But what if that routine timing is just a little too perfect? A little too convenient? And yeah, check out the timing on this. Parliament gets shut down on April 28th. The very next day are the local elections. Elections that Labour's own team are privately calling a potential bloodbath. So this means in the immediate fiery aftermath, when the tough questions would be flying, Parliament is silent. So if you talk to people in the know, you get a very different story. The unofficial reasons are all about tactics. It lets the government just soak up a terrible news cycle without any grilling in Parliament. Then they can try to change the subject with a shiny new agenda. And maybe most importantly, it robs any potential leadership challengers of the time and the platform they need to get organised. And look, you don't even have to take my word for it. We've got a senior government source who basically spelled it all out on the record. They said it's being used as a circuit breaker, a way to protect the Prime Minister when he's at his most vulnerable. Now, if any of this is giving you a serious case of déjà vu, well, it should, because we've seen this exact play before. Let's rewind the clock to the chaos of the Brexit crisis back in 2019. Right in the middle of the battle over a no-deal Brexit, then Prime Minister Boris Johnson shut down Parliament for 5 weeks. It was the longest suspension for political reasons since 1945, and it caused an absolute constitutional firestorm, and the reason why was crystal clear. You can see the impact right here. The move basically cut the time MPs had to try and block a no-deal Brexit almost in half. It was a blatant power move to sideline Parliament on the biggest issue of a generation. The reaction was, well, volcanic. I mean, you had the Speaker of the House himself, John Bercow, condemning it right there in the chamber as a constitutional outrage.
This is not, however, a normal prorogation. It is not typical. It is not standard. It's one of the longest for decades, and it represents, not just in the minds of many colleagues, but huge numbers of people outside, an act of executive fiat.
And who was leading the charge against Johnson, who was out there day after day arguing this was an unforgivable abuse of power. You guessed it, the shadow Brexit secretary at the time, a man named Keir Starmer.
That not only was shutting down Parliament at this crucial time the obviously wrong thing to do, we should be sitting each and every day to resolve this crisis, but that the Prime Minister was not telling the truth about why he was doing it. And this is really important. The idea of shutting down Parliament, I think, offended people across the country, and then they felt that they weren't being told the truth. And that sums up the man. I'm really pleased with this result. I'm surprised because for a court to make a declaration like that on an issue like this is a huge thing for us. It vindicates everything we've done last week. And I think what I can do and what others need to do is to get back to Parliament, see if we can't open those doors and get back in and get Boris Johnson back in Parliament so we can hold him properly to account.
This is where the story gets truly extraordinary. Let's put the words from back then right up against the actions of today. This was Keir Starmer's main attack on Boris Johnson back in 2019. He said the official reason was just a lie, a smokescreen to hide a political power grab. And here's the irony just laid bare. In 2019, Starmer said using prorogation to dodge scrutiny offended people. In 2026, he does it the day before an expected election disaster. In 2019, he argued Parliament should be working each and every day to solve a crisis. In 2026, he shuts it down during his own internal party crisis. And you have to remember just how extreme Johnson's move was. It actually ended up in the UK Supreme Court, which unanimously ruled it was unlawful. Why? Because it silenced Parliament without any good reason. So all of this leaves us with a pretty fundamental question, doesn't it? Is prorogation just a dusty, routine bit of constitutional furniture? Or has it become a go-to shield for the powerful? A convenient escape hatch for leaders of any party when the political heat gets a little too intense, because it really seems like the playbook is the same, no matter who's in charge.